Hello Internet, welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I am going to show you how to install steering wheel with audio controls and Bluetooth. With or without airbag on your Maruti Suzuki Swift, Ertiga, Celerio, Swift Type 1 and Ritz. Alright, let's get started with the process of upgrading the steering wheel. On the screen, you can see the step-by-step procedure I'll be following for this DIY. A quick note, if your car already has an airbag in the steering wheel, you can skip the horn bracket mounting modification. Now, let's begin. So let me show you all the parts one got for this upgrade. The first and most important one is the new steering wheel for my car. I ordered it from the Budmo website, and I'll be linking all the parts one purchased in the description below. The next part we'll need for this upgrade is the 6-pin clock spring, which allows Bluetooth and steering-mounted stereo controls to work properly. This exact clock spring is used in several Maruti Suzuki models, including the 2012 to 2017 Swift, Ertiga, Celerio, Baleno, Brezza, Dzire, and many more. The official part number you'll need to look for is 3740M76M10. This is a 6-pin 2.54mm JST male connector that I ordered online. I'll be using this to connect the inputs from the clock spring directly to the stereo. For proper fitting and flexibility, we'll also extend the wiring by about 40mm. Now let's begin the process of uninstalling all the parts and safely storing them until we reinstall everything later. The first step is to disconnect the negative terminal of the battery to ensure safety. Next, move to the dashboard and carefully start removing the plastic trims covering the stereo. For detailed guidance, you can always refer to your car's service manual on how to properly uninstall the stereo system. Using a Phillips screwdriver, remove the 2 screws that secure the stereo unit to the dashboard. Once removed, keep the screws safely aside for reinstallation. gently pull out the stereo unit. Be careful not to tug too hard, as there will be wiring connectors at the back. Disconnect these connectors one by one, making sure to note their positions for when we reinstall everything later. After disconnecting, store the stereo unit in a safe place where it won't get scratched or damaged. This is the stereo wiring coupler. Later in the process, we will be adding extra pins into this coupler to enable the steering wheel controls and Bluetooth functions. Pin 19 stereo control input. Pin 20 stereo ground. Pin 8 Bluetooth ground. For now, we'll keep this coupler aside until we finish routing the wires from the clock spring. Before handling the steering wheel, ensure the battery has been disconnected for at least 10 minutes to fully discharge any residual power. Locate the screws or clips at the back of the steering wheel that secure the airbag module. Use the correct screwdriver or tool to loosen them. Once loose, gently pull the airbag module forward. Carefully disconnect the airbag connector and horn wire. Place the airbag safely facing upward on a clean surface. Next, mark the steering column position with a marker or tape so you can align the new wheel correctly later. Now, using a socket wrench, remove the center bolt holding the steering wheel. Once the bolt is out, gently wiggle and pull the steering wheel towards you until it comes off the spline. Be patient and avoid hitting it too hard.
"2,000 years later."
Meanwhile,
Next, I'm removing the steering column covers to get easy access to the clock spring and the wiring harness. Take your time here, these covers are held by a few screws and clips, so work gently to avoid cracking the plastic. Using a Phillips screwdriver, unscrew the single screw holding the bottom cover. Remove the two screws securing the top cover. Carefully unclip both halves and set them aside safely. After the steering wheel is removed, you'll see the clock spring unit mounted on the steering column. Disconnect the wiring connectors going into the clock spring. Unscrew the mounting screws holding it in place and carefully remove the old clock spring. Please note, you can skip this step if your car already has an airbag. Since my car is an older model without an airbag, I'm retrofitting the horn pad mounting bracket. I'll remove the bracket from the old steering wheel and fabricate it onto the new steering wheel. This way I can still use the horn function without spending extra money on an airbag that I can't use anyway. The horn pad mount, or frame, is a metal piece with 4 contact points on top. When you press the horn pad, these contact points touch the main body of the frame, which is bolted to the steering wheel chassis. Since the steering wheel is connected to the steering column, pressing the horn pad completes the circuit by grounding the negative, and that's how the horn activates. Here's an image of the horn pad from my old steering wheel shown from different angles. As you can see, it has 4 legs that make direct contact with the metal skeleton of the steering wheel where it's bolted. Now, I had 2 options here: either fabricate a new base for this mounting frame while keeping the top section the same, or try bending the legs of the original mount to bring it into the correct position and height. I decided to first try bending. The steering wheel had 4 holes that I could use to fit the mount, but to make it work, I needed to bend the legs at different angles. I started with the top 2 legs, securing them with screws to give me enough grip. Then I bent the other 2 legs. For one of them, I used a bolt and nut since there was no threading in that hole, and the other one was secured along with the screw that holds the Bluetooth buttons. To align the horn pad in the right position, I carefully bent all 4 legs until I got the desired fit. The mount ended up looking a bit twisty, but once locked in, it felt secure and solid. The material is tough, so it needed quite a bit of force with a cutting plier, and I could only bend it while it was mounted on the steering wheel, not separately on a vise. After multiple test fits, I was confident with the setup. The horn pad could be removed and reinstalled easily, and the mount held strong in place. Here's the final fitment of the horn pad mount in its correct position. The circled areas show where and how it was secured. Finally, here's a comparison of both steering wheels, where I took the horn pad mount from the OE steering and successfully fitted it to the new steering wheel. Now let's move on to the wiring harness connections. From the steering wheel coupler, or JST connector, we have 5 wires. Pin 1, the green wire, is illumination negative. Pin 2, the yellow wire, is illumination positive, which goes to the red and blue wire of the fog light switch. Pin 3, the black wire, is the horn ground wire. Pin 4, the orange, carries the Bluetooth control signal. This connects to pin 8 of the head unit socket. Pin 5, the red, is the stereo control signal, which connects to pin 19 of the head unit. Finally, brown, the common ground for all steering button signals, connects to pin 20 of the head unit. So, in short, illumination wires connect to the stereo blacklight wire pin 2 red, while the 3 steering button signal wires go directly to the head unit, with the horn using its dedicated ground. This completes the wiring from the contact coil to the head unit, illumination source, and horn. Solder the horn wire from the horn mounting bracket to the steering wheel wire for the horn. The rest of the tasks were quite straightforward. I started routing the wiring harness along the stock wiring path, securing it neatly with zip ties, all the way to the stereo. For the illumination wiring, I tapped into the stereo backlight wire. The red wire was connected for illumination positive, while the negative was grounded securely to the chassis of the car. This ensured a clean, reliable, and OEM-style installation. Next, I opened the male connector for the stereo, carefully unclipped it, and pushed the stereo control pin into pin number 19, and the stereo ground pin into pin number 20. I secured them properly in place as shown in the picture. Since my stereo does not support Bluetooth functionality or microphone input, I did not connect the Bluetooth pin to pin number 8. For the illumination wiring, I tapped into the stereo backlight wire. The red wire was connected for illumination positive, while the negative was grounded securely to the chassis of the car. This ensured a clean, reliable, and OEM-style installation. To avoid tapping into existing wires and risking damage, I connected the illumination ground wire directly to the chassis using a screw. This ensures a solid and reliable ground connection without disturbing the stock wiring. Start by reconnecting the male connector to the stereo, along with the antenna coupler, USB, and AUX connectors. Once everything is plugged in, carefully slide the stereo back into the dashboard and secure it in place. Next, route the extended wiring harness along the stock path. Use zip ties to hold it neatly and ensure it doesn't interfere with any moving parts. Finally, separate the signal and illumination wires inside flexible nylon sleeves for extra protection. Screw the stereo back to the dashboard. Position the new 6-pin clock spring onto the steering column and align it correctly. Secure it in place with its screws. Once mounted, connect the 6-pin coupler to the clock spring and make sure it clicks firmly into position. Finally, reconnect the horn wire to its terminal. Now, connect the horn pin from the clock spring directly to the wiring harness coupler of the car. Double-check that the connection is secure before proceeding. Reattach the steering column covers. First, fit the top cover into place and secure it with its 2 screws. Then, install the bottom cover and tighten the screw, ensuring all clips snap together neatly without forcing.
Nice.
Before installing the steering wheel, ensure the contact coil, clock spring, is centered. Most new clock springs come pre-centered and are held with a blue lock pin. Once the steering column is set to the center position, remove the blue lock pin to unlock the clock spring. Next, align the steering wheel with the markings made earlier on the spline to ensure it remains straight. Slide the steering wheel carefully onto the splines without forcing it. Finally, insert the center bolt and tighten it using a socket wrench until it is firm and secure. Make sure the wheel sits flush against the hub with no play. Connect the steering wheel control button male coupler to the clock spring securely. If your vehicle is not equipped with an airbag, retrofit the horn pad mounting bracket that was fabricated from the old steering wheel. Secure it in place with the 4 screws so that the horn function works properly. If the vehicle has an airbag, reconnect the airbag connector and horn wire. Place the module carefully and tighten the screws or clips at the back of the steering wheel to secure it. Screw the horn clips wires back to the mounting bracket. Take the horn pad assembly, carefully position the horn pad over the steering wheel frame, aligning the mounting points correctly. Once aligned, press the horn pad firmly into place until the clips or screws lock it securely. Ensure the pad sits flush and does not wobble. Double-check that the horn pad moves freely when pressed and springs back properly, confirming correct installation.
Post Payment Bank sense of humor ಅನ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ
Alright guys, that wraps up the DIY stereo upgrade. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment to let me know your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. A big shout out to Parag Sakania from Team BHP for his wonderfully detailed and informative forum post. His successful mod on his own car gave me the confidence to go ahead with my stereo upgrade. Please do check him out. I'll be linking his forum post in the description below.